Hello, welcome to a late night edition of Hotline Live with Record Sport, brought to you by NordVPN. Easily the best VPN for all of your sporting events when you're abroad. Keith, how's it going?
That's starting to sound like a hostage tape, Dan.
I'll need to freshen it up for next week, definitely. Definitely, I'll need to freshen it up. Great VPN though.
Yeah, the best. I don't know what you seem a bit flat, Dan. I thoroughly enjoyed watching the curling there.
I tell you, I wish I had watched the curling.
I wish I'd stuck with it.
I mean, that was, we were just saying off air. It was embarrassing, I think, for Celtic. Really embarrassing.
That's the word. That's the word I would use. I don't know what words Martin O'Neill will use in the post-match press conferences. He probably won't go in as hard as that. He's got to try and get something out of these players. But deep down, he'll have been embarrassed by that. You know, the whole build-up to this game was what happened, 23 years ago, as Celtic were on the march to Seville, and they dealt with Stuttgart on the way. I think put them out before they went on to Liverpool. Martin O'Neill must have been absolutely embarrassed by that performance. Even if he doesn't go as far as saying it. I just thought from the protest right at the start of the game to the performance all the way through the 90 minutes, Celtic were a pale imitation of the club that they should be and the club that they aspire to be in European football on the European stage. I felt from minute one, they didn't engage in the game. They didn't look as if they believed they could win it. And, you know, we were talking about this, Daniel, and saying it'd be really intriguing to see what the starting lineup looks like, because there's your indication of what the manager's thinking is achievable here and what he went, what he thought was as full strength as he could go. He went full tilt. He played what he thought was his strongest 11. He's now walking away from that tonight, wondering if he's got that right. If that is his strongest 11, some of the subs made a bit of a difference, but by the end the game was done. Stuttgart were superior in every department, across every level, and Celtic, they stood off the game. And that was the embarrassing bit, because that's not what anybody anticipates from a Celtic team playing at home, under the lights, on a European night, whether or not they like the Europa League. Or, do you know what? They looked like a team that didn't belong in the Europa League tonight. And that doesn't mean, I don't mean by that they belong in the Champions League. They look like a Conference League side playing Europa League football tonight. I just felt, I actually went through it, Dan, at half-time. And I know we'll get to things, and even the booing of Kasper Schmeichel in the second half, that's embarrassing. Everything about that tonight was just something that Celtic will want to forget in a hurry. But as I said, I've gone through it, and I did this the other week with one of these Rangers performances, midweek performances. At half-time, Daniel, I'm looking at the starting 11. I've got 3.5 half marks out of the 11 pass marks.
I don't even know. I'm trying to think who the three could be.
Well, I thought Araujo looked okay first half. I thought he was in the battle at least, and that's what you're looking for. I thought Callum McGregor, as always, put on a performance, and then Chvanchara, I guess, did okay. And Kieran Tierney, because you get what you expect from Kieran Tierney. But I mean, that's 3.5 pass marks. I'm going to give Chvanchara a half mark. So, what chance have you got playing at this level if 7 or 8 of your players aren't even turning up for the game?
No, you'll hear from the sound there that we're joined live from Celtic Park by Record Sports' Fraser Wilson and Ryan McDonald, and it seems the Stuttgart support.
Yeah, they've been the ones making the racket from pretty much the first whistle. A pretty tired night at the office for Celtic. I don't think many fans expected a win, to be honest, against a high-flying team in the Bundesliga, but this was a pretty slow one to take. I thought that Stuttgart pretty much dominated from most of the game, and it was a pretty humiliating end and a dire way from Martin O'Neill to mark his 1,000th game in professional management.
there's a lot of comments coming in, guys, and if you're watching, Kasper Schmeichel, a lot of comments coming in on him. How did you interpret the booing of him, and what did you think of his performance?
I think so. This isn't the first time that Kasper Schmeichel has been booed at Celtic Park. You'll recall after the Rangers game in January, Wilfred Nancy's final match in charge, I think Schmeichel was at fault for Rangers' third, and behind the section behind the goal, which I think is a Lisbon Lions stand, there was literally thousands of fans booing him then. And I was genuinely gobsmacked. I'd never, been coming to Celtic Park for years. I'd never seen that at all. Fans turning against their own players, especially during an Old Firm game. Tonight it happened again. I think Schmeichel, the way I've interpreted it, I think he was at fault for 2 of the 3 goals. He's clearly getting issue with the left-hand side. I know he's obviously taking shoulder injections in the minute, but he's far too slow to react. And it's not as if they were nestled into the bottom corner or top on a postage stamp. They were more or less right through the middle. And I'm afraid I think Kasper Schmeichel's best days are long behind him. I think he's becoming a liability for Celtic, both domestically and in Europe. And there comes a point when the manager has to make a decision. You've got Sinisalo, who was brought in as a deputy to Schmeichel to learn from him, with the view to becoming Celtic's number 1 when Schmeichel eventually retires. There's absolutely no way that Schmeichel is going to be here at Celtic Park next season. So Martin O'Neill, in my view, has got a decision in his hands. Does he stick or twist? Because in a minute, once the fans turn against you, I don't think there's any way back, to be honest. And it's a mistake every month, if not every few weeks for Schmeichel at the minute. He's become a real problem for Celtic, and it's no wonder they're leaking goals left, right, and centre. So for me, I think if I was the manager, I'd be going with Sinisalo from now on.
Yeah, look, guys, I think that is a decision that Martin O'Neill's going to have to confront now. Going into this really important stretch of games, Stuttgart away, but obviously Aberdeen away, Rangers away, all coming up. I actually would go further than that, Ryan. I don't want to get involved in a pile-on in Kasper Schmeichel, because I really rate him. I think he's been a massive contributor to Celtic over the last while. But I actually thought he made 2 mistakes for the first goal. I think his clearance was terrible. I think he played his own team into trouble with that kind of half-hearted clearance. Big German central defender got up, won the header. Easily. It was like taking candy off a baby, going up above Tanecki. That put Celtic on the back foot. The defence had to swivel, and then the shot goes straight through him. And if there is an injury issue, and we've heard about this on the left-hand side, his shoulder, surely by now Celtic's medical department have to have kind of researched this or dug into it, because it is every time on his left-hand side. Fraser, you're a goalkeeper. Does he look to you as if he's a bit of a lame duck here?
I just start saying I'm a step down for Ryan here, so that's the truth of the matter. But unfortunately, step's too small.
I've got still on.
Look, as somebody that played at a level probably 7 levels below Kasper Schmeichel, I think you're being generous to yourself there. Maybe 8 or 9 actually. Aye. But look, my shoulders went, and I can tell you it doesn't matter what level you play at. If you've got shoulder problems, that's a serious issue for a goalkeeper. And it's both sides. More importantly, at the side that you're landing on. That just a fraction of a second, if that delays your dive, then you're in trouble. And that's what all these goals that have question marks over them for Schmeichel, they all raise questions over his injury for me. The one in the first half, where the boys shot back across him. You're right, Keith, it's his own poor clearance that starts the move for Stuttgart. But I could see what the boy was going to do before he shot, and I'm sure Schmeichel could as well, and he just couldn't react quick enough. I thought, and going back to Saturday actually at Rugby Park, I thought his footwork was a problem. He couldn't get his feet moving quickly back enough to get the dive in. And then the third one tonight, that was down to his right, and again, it's come through a ruck of bodies, but it skipped up right over his hand, and again, it just looks like it's a fraction of a second too late in reacting to it.
You might not have seen, guys, but the TV replay showed it straight through him again. but what he's actually attempted to do is bat it away with his right hand. And rather than just make the save. Now, to me, it looks like a routine save, but he's tried to bat it with his right arm and got under the ball.
Your hand's smaller when you do that.
And
he's going with a smaller hand. Well, again, that makes me think he's not got a lot of confidence in the strength in his shoulder and his arm, and he's actually trying to get a fist at rather than his full hand. But, I just felt with the booing of him, which is a sad sight, it just had a whole end of days kind of feel for Kasper Schmeichel tonight. I do believe this is a season too far for him, but I think it also raises questions about whether they have faith in Sinisalo to put him in at such an important point of the season. He came in because Schmeichel had to sit out at Livingston just after Christmas, and to be fair, he let 2 goals in and didn't really do much else in Sinisalo that day. He didn't really have much chance for the goals. But I don't know, I feel like there's a lack of faith in putting him in there, and I do feel as if they're just going to go with Schmeichel for the rest of the season. But in this form, it could end up costing them the title.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, I don't think Sinisalo's a world beater by any matter of means, and to be honest, I don't really think he's been a standout in any of the games he has played. Fraser referenced the game against Livingston. I think pre-season as well, he didn't look too comfortable. So he's not... For me, he's not a long-term answer, but the way Schmeichel's playing at the minute, I do think he's an upgrade. I can't lie.
There was problems beyond Schmeichel tonight, though. Let's not kid ourselves. Aye. Stuttgart were a level above. The second goal, I'm not sure. Scales and Trusty seem to be on different wavelengths altogether.
Nigel loses him.
Deflection.
Nigel loses him. It's as you said, but Celtic again totally standing off the game, allowing Stuttgart to pop passes around the penalty area. Eventually the cross comes in. It does take a deflection. Nygren has no defensive awareness, lets the boy run off his shoulder, and by the time he arrives into that 6-yard area, neither Scales nor Trusty seen him coming. So it was just, and this is what I'm saying. This is what I find embarrassing about that performance from Celtic tonight, was the lack of engagement. There was a lack of urgency, a lack of intensity, and probably a lack of belief. And it just didn't feel like Celtic Park should on a European night.
Yeah, I think the press was all wrong. I think they looked dysfunctional at times as well. The midfield for me is just not capable of playing in Europe. Yeah. Callum McGregor is constantly overrun, and he's constantly. It's if he's trying to second guess where every second ball's going to go, because he knows he can't rely on Nygren, and it's either going to be Bernardo or it's or Engels or Hatate, neither of which are good enough. So I feel sorry for Callum McGregor, because he's been dragged down by the rest of his teammates at the minute, and he's getting a hard time because he's the captain, he's the talisman. But I tell you what, he's been let down badly by his teammates. And for me, that midfield is just, and it's been a problem for Daniel and I. Have been on the Celtic podcast this season. How many times have I said, Daniel, the midfield is a big problem area for Celtic. There's this myth that Celtic have got plenty of quality in midfield. They don't. They absolutely don't. And they certainly don't for Europe. They've been crying out for a powerhouse. It's a cliche that a guy like Victor Wanyama, a real powerhouse in the middle of that park, that is a defensive machine. And they simply don't have that. They lack legs, they lack energy, they lack any sort of dynamism. And then that's before you get to the defensive issues, because Scales and Trusty, I'm afraid, aren't the solution to the back either. They might fare okay domestically, but to be fair, Trusty's done well in Europe at times, but I think this just all points to a massive rebuild that's coming in the summer, and it's a case of who's going to be in charge of it. And just another question to throw in the mix here is, I think that Martin O'Neill now, it's a no-brainer. Next week in Stuttgart, I know he's got a duty to put out for Celtic players to do the fans proud away from home. Fans are paying a fortune to go over there, but if you look at the context of the season, Martin O'Neill has got to do what Ange Postecoglou did against Bodo Glimt in 2022, I think it was, and he's got to put out a second string. This is done and dusted. I don't think Celtic have won in German soil in their history before, but they're certainly not going to turn this 4-1 defeat around. So consign this to the bin, consign it to the history books. I think now all focus turns towards the league and the Scottish Cup.
Two things with that, Ryan, that I can see right away. One, do you know what the second 11 is and what the first 11 is right now? Because he went with his first 11 tonight, and they were actually they got slightly better when the subs come on. And two, if Celtic bin that game off, as you say, go to Stuttgart and accept whatever comes their way, which could be an even heavier beating than they got tonight, what does that do to morale at a critical point in the campaign? Haven't they got to balance something off?
I think, to be honest, if you're talking about what's their second and what's their first team, if this is the team they put out, it could be a battering anyway. So to be honest, I think Celtic are on the hide into nothing. You made a good point about what's their second string, but I'm looking at guys that have played week in, week out. Callum McGregor for number one, I'd be taking him right out. There's no point in risking him, like you say, at this critical stage of the season. Kieran Tierney, I think he could be doing a rest. Marcelo Saraki's done okay when he's come in. I've been putting Donovan in for Arojo. So yeah, there's obviously Dane Murray, who's inexperienced, but if he's going to carve out a future for himself at Celtic, that he could be due a start. It's not ideal, look, it's definitely not ideal, and as I say, the fans that are paying fortunes to go over there will expect to see a strong squad, but I think if you put it all into context, then I think the title in the Scottish Cup has got to be the priority now, because this European campaign is relatively over.
I think the next two Sundays are far bigger than next Thursday now, and one player that I think has to come straight in for his first start on Sunday is Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain. I don't think there's any argument about that whatsoever. Going by the little that we've seen of him so far, I think he'll make a massive difference to that midfield.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's actually a blessing in disguise he didn't make the European squad, because if he did, he'd probably be thrown in. And you know, what if he picked up an injury in a needless game like this? He's had a full week to get more training under his belt, get used to his teammates. And I think, I did say last week that I thought that he would start on the bench against against Livingston and Kilmarnock, just to get himself up to speed, get minutes in the legs again. But now I think he should be pushing for a start. Celtic need him more than ever now. This is why he's been signed, so he's clearly got the quality to make the difference. And yeah, I'd expect him to start against Hibs.
Guys, I know you've got some post-match duties to be getting on with. We'll let you go, but safe travels up the road when the time comes.
Right, thanks, guys.
Cheers.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers, boys.
Cheers.
Ryan and Fraser there at Celtic Park. We've got tons of comments coming in, Keith, so let me throw a few of these at you if that's okay. Mr. To Topic says, tribute to say, Keith Negrin just floats about, but always pops up with a goal. He's Rangers' biggest threat. The atmosphere was shocking tonight. Davey says, I'm just on my way back from the game. We were awful. The team doesn't have a creative bone among them. Your Loyal Muppet says, the talk of Celtic winning the Europa was crazy. As much chance as Daniel, and as Daniel supporting Rangers, as everyone knows, I'm a lifelong Man United fan. Patrick says, can't see us winning diddly squat. Craigie says, Casper was man in the match for them. Dom says, cannot see Celtic winning a thing this season, apart from worst goalie of the year award. Ross says, Celtic at school tonight, out of our depth at this level. This could be double figures over 2 legs. And this one, I'm probably going to have to apologise for this one, but Sidey says, Peter Schmeichel's officially given his boy up for adoption. I mean, that that Casper was bad, but maybe not that bad tonight. So that's the comments. And I would just add at the end there, Keith, do you know what makes it really depressing from a Celtic point of view as well? Is that this is a place, Celtic Park, that teams feared going to. Celtic would go several seasons without losing a game at Celtic Park. And now, this season alone, Rangers, Hearts, Braga, Roma, Stuttgart have all won at Celtic Park. And still a few months to go.
Daniel, it shouldn't come as a surprise.
No, I know, of course.
Because Dundee went there and played Celtic off the pitch. And I keep referring or referencing that game because that was an eye-opener. And I think Marzuno come up with a comment earlier referencing the January window again. And it's so true. But this is why, and then, you know, you get Rod Stewart's and all this saying, oh, back off, the board are doing great. You know, the bottom line is that performance, that result, that embarrassment was coming because Celtic don't have the quality, because the board haven't invested in the quality. They haven't recruited properly. They haven't given Martin O'Neill a chance. Everything that Martin O'Neill has done over his 2 terms this season, he's done it for himself, without the backing, without any support, without you know, any reinforcements of quality being brought in. Yes, you know, he even went out his way to personally push the Oxlade-Chamberlain deal, and we'll see, because that could be, as the guys are saying, that could be the difference maker domestically. But I think it's shameful. I look at that Celtic side from where it was to where it is. the whole Brendan Rodgers debacle, the absolutely ridiculous evisceration of a guy that just piled up trophies on Celtic's behalf by the principal shareholder, who, absentee landlord. No wonder the fans are protesting. But again, even that, the fact that they're protesting 30 seconds into a game like this on a European stage, to me, again, it screams of a fractured football club. And on a night which Celtic really should have been up for, I don't know if that protest just sort of knocked the wind. You could see, he didn't need to be a lip reader, by the way, to see what Martin O'Neill thought of it.
Aye, I saw that.
Because after asking Sean Maloney what was going on and getting it explained to him, he didn't seem entirely pleased. Let's just leave it there. But yeah, I mean, the thing is, Daniel, you wonder now, what's the collateral damage from this? Because this period now of the season domestically is so huge. And Celtic have been stumbling and bumbling along, scraping last-minute winners against, in the Scottish Cup against Dundee, but also Livingston and Kilmarnock. So 3 teams at the lower reaches of the SPFL, they've been made to struggle. Dundee played them off their own pitch. And after a beating like that, you wonder, will people go into their shells? I don't know. But this feels as if it could be a pivotal moment. What's the response going to be like? You know that Martin O'Neill is going to be doing everything that he can to get in and about these guys and get them back up. But there's a few players in that team and in his starting 11 tonight that they're starting to look like lost causes. That, whether or not they believe in themselves, whether or not they believe in their teammates, I don't know. But that was, as I said, an absolute pale imitation of what Celtic fans have got every right to expect from their side on a European night. That was for a place in the last 16 of a European competition. Celtic looked as if, we talked about it as this a game that Celtic didn't need, didn't we, in the build-up to it?
Yep.
But 5 minutes into it, I'm asking myself, is this a game that the Celtic players don't want? And the crowd, for that matter. Nothing about that felt like this was a game that Celtic, whether it was the fans off the pitch or the players on it, believed was theirs for the taking. It was a limp, weak, pretty pathetic surrender, total surrender, capitulation. And where this side goes from here on the back of that, well, that remains to be seen. But I think there's the potential for some pretty serious collateral damage after a performance like that.
I'm sorry to go back to it again, but you mentioned there with the chat with the guys, Keith, that Martin O'Neill has to confront the Kasper Schmeichel problem now. John is just one of a few people in the comments, or a lot of people, saying Kasper has to be dropped. It's embarrassing now. Just to be clear, if you were the Celtic manager, would you take him out now? Drop him?
Well, this is a problem, isn't it? As the boys mentioned, what's Sinisalo looking like in training?
Exactly.
Because if you're picking a team, Martin O'Neill was not picking a team and doing it based on sentimental reasons. He's not playing Kasper Schmeichel because it'd be hard on him to drop him. That's not Martin O'Neill's style.
No.
So what does that tell you? It tells you that Stevie Wood's the goalkeeping coach and Martin O'Neill are looking at training and reaching the conclusion that Kasper Schmeichel's a better bet than Sinisalo. That's a huge concern, because it's very well saying, yep, time to take Kasper out the firing line here. But if you think that he's a more capable goalkeeper and more likely to win you football games than Sinisalo, then I dread to think what Sinisalo's looking like on a day-in, day-out basis. And that would be a concern, because, the problems that Kasper Schmeichel is encountering right now seem glaringly obvious. But we ain't getting a look at what's happening at Leonardstown the rest of the time. Yeah.
I mean, Big Dom in the comments sums it up well, saying if Sinisalo's that good, he'd be in the team by now, which you'd imagine is probably right.
This game hasn't come out the blue and, hit anybody over the back of the head in terms of Kasper Schmeichel. We've all seen the decline.
Yeah.
I've defended him throughout the course of the season, because I do think that there have been massive saves made in big, important games and at crucial moments in those games. And I think some of the criticism has been harsh on him because of that, because he was still weighing in with good moments. But when the good moments aren't there anymore, and it's just the mistakes, and it's just the sort of liability side of it. As I said to you, the first goal tonight, it was he's to blame for letting it through him, but he's also to blame for putting his team in that situation that the Germans managed to get front foot on, because it's just a poor, sloppy, kind of half-hearted clearance.
And I would just, to go back to it as well, I know you said it, but I would just kind of back you up. You see Chick there in the comments saying outplayed, outsung and outclassed, but the booing for Casper was shocking. That was really poor. That was really poor.
I don't know what good anybody thinks that's going to do.
Aye.
Casper Schmeichel, his confidence will be really low. His morale will be really low. To have your own fans booing you, your every touch of the ball,
very poor.
I just don't see what purpose it serves. Maybe the Celtic fans are thinking, well, they're sending out a message that this guy, he has to step out the firing line. But as I said to you, that's all well and good. But if you don't trust what the alternative is, if you trust the alternative even less than you trust the problem, then are you risking biting off your nose to spite your face and throwing a keeper that you don't trust into the most important series of games that potentially make or break your domestic campaign as well?
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's all very well identifying that Casper Schmeichel was nowhere near the Casper Schmeichel that he was even 12 months ago. But if the manager has decided, and I think the Celtic fans do trust the manager, so if the manager has decided that he's still a better bet than the guy that's there as his backup, then booing the guy during 90 minutes makes no sense at all.
Yeah, and James in the comments is staying pretty positive. He says, good to see Ian Atchell getting minutes. Keep him in the Ox fit. I'll feel confident with the title. I'm putting that up, Keith, just before he finished, just basically to ask you, is that all Celtic can do? Just basically try and forget tonight ever happened? Just accept we're not at that level.
And hope that there's no collateral damage. Yeah, but that's why I refer to the potential for collateral damage here in terms of confidence levels, in terms of, morale, and the whole sort of impetus that you're looking to build at this point in the season, momentum. Whatever Celtic might have been building by scraping a few last-minute goals against the three sides at the lower reaches of the SPFL, whatever momentum that was, or whatever would qualify for momentum from that was wiped out tonight. Is right back to square one. And worse than that, as I said to you, I think Martin O'Neill would have been fairly confident that was his strongest 11 that he sent out tonight. And now I genuinely believe that we're sitting there when he gets to his bed tonight thinking, wow, I'm not even sure what my strongest 11 looks like anymore. And that's a really bad sign when there are so many matches of such significance in such a short period of time to come.
Absolutely. And I mean, a lot of people in the comments debating about the Celtic board. And I would just say that Matt Uppinsworth, we were saying off air before we come on, Stuttgart, they've got a wage bill of around 67 million, I think, last count. Celtic's, I think, a couple of years ago was at 64 million. There's no real reason why there should be an absolute gulf between them. Okay, Stuttgart, better league, bit more money, but that shouldn't be a gulf like that. And it's almost a year to the day. Celtic nearly put Bayern out in their own stadium. Yeah. I mean, the kind of dilution of quality in this team is just remarkable.
Well, yeah, but I mean, nobody should be surprised by that. That hasn't baseball battered you either, has it? Because
I know.
We've all been looking at it. We also saw Kyogo getting sold. We also his replacement, Adam Ida, getting sold. We also Nicholas Kuhn being sold without replacements coming in. So none of this is surprising. That, the Celtic board might be, they might cling to that stat that you've just trotted out there as a validation for themselves. They are still spending money. Celtic are spending money, or have spent money, but the recruitment, the lack of ambition has, as much as the Celtic board could point to the wages that are getting spent and say it's comparable to a Stuttgart, Stuttgart are a progressive club trying to move forward. Celtic have gone into, I don't know, reverse mode over the last 12 months. And you trace it all back to what happened between Dermot Desmond and Brendan Rodgers. And although Martin O'Neill has been in there fighting manfully, trying to work miracles to keep this thing on track this season, that's where the problem lies. That's where the club became fractured. And not even Martin O'Neill, with all the goodwill that he's got going from, he can't bring the fans together and get everything reunited because the fractures run too deep now. So what happens now for the rest of the season for Celtic? Anybody's guess. Martin O'Neill, as I said, has been doing an incredible job by keeping grinding out wins, keeping posting points on the board. But that side to me doesn't look fit for purpose anymore, and it hasn't looked fit for purpose on the domestic scene. Never mind the European stage. And tonight, I'm going to come back to it, became an embarrassment. And
Marzuno points out, look at Bodo Glimt last night, a town the size of Dumbarton. That was some result for them in Milan. So there's no reason why Celtic should be like this, is what I'm trying to say. But there you go. Before we finish, Keith, games at the weekend. We'll be back on Sunday. Hotline Live, I think, will be at 6 o'clock. The two games on Sunday, Celtic Hibs, Livingston Rangers, both being a 3 o'clock kickoffs, throw me a bit, but 6 o'clock we'll be back.
That's the kind of legacy of the Thursday night football, Daniel, isn't it? That Celtic, normally that would have been a Saturday 3 o'clock, becomes a Sunday 3 o'clock. The game live on telly, Livingston Rangers. Do you know, it's one of them that you wish you could watch both games at the same time. I'll be fascinated to see and feel what the atmosphere is like inside Celtic Park come 2:30 on Sunday afternoon, because I don't think it's going to feel like there's a lot of energy or goodwill there. I think that already feels like a really difficult afternoon for Celtic. And Livingston away is always a difficult afternoon for whoever goes there, even despite Livingston's lack of results this season. Some of the performances have been way better than the results suggest. Livingston away is a notoriously difficult venue. If Rangers go there and deal with it comfortably and score a couple of goals, then they continue to send out a message that they're on an upward trajectory and Celtic are going in the opposite direction.
No, I couldn't agree more. And like that Hearts Falkirk game will be a cracker as well. I think that's going to be a really good game. And we'll be back on Sunday at 6 p.m. to talk about all of the weekend's Premiership action. But for now, thanks so much for staying up late with us. Thanks for all of your comments. And Keith, Betty byes.
Night, Daniel. Don't have nightmares.
You too. And thank you for watching at home. Hope you can join us Sunday. Cheers.